Welcome to HR Voices, a podcast for independent HR and people professionals and the businesses they support. HR Voices is brought to you by the expert team at HR Independence Limited. We hope you enjoy.
Hello, welcome to HR Voices podcast. I'm your host, Mary Asante. And with me here today, I've got the fantastic Theresa Cooper from Cooperative HR. Hi, Theresa.
Hi, Mary.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. You?
Excellent. Thank you for joining me. Really excited about our conversation because we will be looking at HR consultancy services and then the service that we provide to businesses, the expertise that we bring, and effectively the value that we add and can potentially add to clients.
Yeah.
I'm sure you would agree with me that a lot of the time when the word HR comes out, we get eye rolling, eyeballing, and all sorts. And you add HR consultants to the equation, and people may go, what is that? So I thought it's a really good opportunity for us to unpack some of those myths and to highlight the actual value and what we do with clients and how we help them.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds great.
Excellent. So before we start, if you can tell our listeners and our viewers more about yourself and Cooperative HR, that would be amazing.
Yeah, cool. So as Mary said, I'm Theresa. I run Cooperative HR. I've been in HR for over 20 years, although that doesn't seem possible. I started out as an administrator, fell into HR accidentally, but then I moved into HR management and became a business partner. I'd worked with a number of companies, and then I thought I'd actually like to start trying consulting, but I didn't really have any understanding of how a consultancy would work. So I think it was 2013, I started contracting with a large consultancy, and then in 2018 decided that I wanted to build something for myself. So that's when Cooperative HR was born. And from that stage, I work with small and medium-sized businesses that want the reassurance and support of HR, but can't necessarily commit to the cost of a full-time salary. The way I work with my clients is very flexible, very hands-on. I try to take the HR burden, as they call it, away from them rather than adding to their workload. So my simple goal is to give managers clarity, create smarter workplaces, and save business owners time. And ultimately, my strapline is enabling businesses to do business, not HR.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rita, for that comprehensive introduction into Cooperative HR, yourself, and what you do. Now, for anyone listening, what does HR actually, so thinking about the client base that you support, why would anyone consider working with an HR consultant?
I think, as I've said, the approach is very flexible, and good HR consultants will tailor their support to the client needs. It isn't a one size fits all. I've found, yes, HR is very set and very specific, and we're tied by legislation. But in terms of how you embed that and implement that within businesses, can vary depending on the client, the size, the industry, etc., etc. So the main reason I find is that people have business owners that have people will come across issues, but fingers crossed they're not 100% of the time. So paying somebody and having somebody on the payroll that maybe, there are things that you can do, but maybe not needed the whole time, can add significant costs to the bottom line. So ultimately, working with a consultant, you have somebody that is flexible, and you're just paying when you actually need their support. And I think the other for me, I found often with working with consultancies that, I'm a generalist, so I will cover the remit of HR, but I also have a huge network of people that I can work with. So if one of my clients specifically wants a reward and recognition project, then I can refer them to other people. And again, they're not having to recruit and hire those people on a full-time basis, paying out huge salaries to get that advice and that support. So for me, it's that flexibility and that cost reduction.
Excellent. So basically, HR consultants fill the space or the gap where, especially for organizations who may not have in-house HR or may not be big enough to warrant employing an HR person either full-time or part-time basis, and engaging with consultants and as and when needed basis. But then there are also consultants who complement in-house HR, as well as even teams of relatively big HR in-house, which is basically, I'm sure you've done that, I've done that several times, where you go in for specific and special projects to complement what they have in-house as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you say, depending on the business, some will have that internal HR, and whether that's on a practical day-to-day level, and then they need a little bit more support, or a specific project. So, for example, a couple of years ago, I went into a client where they needed a salary review. So looking at the whole salaries across the company, but the internal team didn't have the time or the knowledge to do that. So I worked alongside them. They, supported the day-to-day, finding the information, getting that together, and then I did the final investigation and the report in terms of the benchmarking, and then put that back to the board. So yeah, sometimes you're standalone and you are doing everything from the admin to up to the dismissals, but sometimes you are doing a specific project. So I think the variety again is why a lot of us come into the consultancy world as well.
Excellent. And then you talked about the fact that you were a journalist. For anyone listening to us who may not be very familiar with HR and what journalist means, or specialist, or whatever it means, what does it mean to be an HR journalist?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so when I did my studies, I did my postgrad diploma in human resources. So it covers, the whole remit of HR, which can go from the employee life cycle to recruitment, performance management, disciplinaries, supporting with training, reward and benefit, salaries, and obviously the legal overview as well. So generally, any people problems that you'd have within a business, I'll be able to support with. And then, as I say, if there's something specific, say more in depth, then I would refer to someone else. But on a day-to-day basis, for the majority of the queries that clients that use a consultant need, I'm there to support them with those issues.
Excellent. So you can support an organization from before or when they are thinking about employing people or bringing people on board, through to supporting them with the recruitment process when they come into the company, the onboarding, helping them to embed into teams, etc. And then helping managers and supporting the business with performance management, appraisals, employee discussions, difficult conversations, through to if it doesn't quite work out or when people are ready to move on, helping them leave that or exit that business in the best and nicest possible way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of those things I can do, and many consultants will do with their businesses that they work with. I think, again, a key thing for me was one of the reasons I went into HR was because I wasn't treated very fairly by actually two of my first employers in my early days. And I thought, hang on, there must be a better way of dealing with people. So, the point for me of the HR consultant is to work with the businesses and employees, and ensure that we're providing a fair and consistent approach, in terms of supporting the business to make sure that even if they've got to make difficult decisions, that they're carrying that out fairly and legally, really, to protect them and the employee. But also, having some conversations on occasion with employees to kind of say, come on, let's, you've been off sick, for example, how is this fair for the employer when they're paying you? So, it's all about that fairness and transparency and supporting the business and employees to do the right thing, really.
Excellent. So for our audience, if someone is running a business or leading a team, etc., at what point should they start thinking about engaging an HR consultant? Is it when someone has slapped a grievance on their desk, or if there's an issue with an employee when they're thinking about disciplinary, or is it way before that when you really think about HR strategically in a way that you want to align your people strategy with the business strategy so that you can bring people along?
I think prevention is definitely better than cure. So for me, as if you're thinking of starting a business and especially growing that business and recruiting people, have a chat with an HR consultant, because as you say, they can then help you look at that recruitment strategy, make sure that you're finding the best people in the best way. You can make sure when you onboard them that they have their T's and C's and the handbooks and the policies that will protect you and them, and make sure that you're not doing anything illegally as well. So for me, it's an initial conversation. Again, it's just as and what you need, so it's not a huge cost, but it's knowing with an HR consultant that you have that support nearby at the end of a phone or in a meeting face to face that can support you and ensure from day one you're getting it right. And as you say, that means that when you bring the employees on, they're all on that same road to success with you, and they know the expectations, they know where the business is going, they know how you work, how the business works, etc., etc. So it's about transparency and being clear. So the sooner you get somebody in, kind of when you get a grievance on your desk, or having to discipline somebody, or sort of saying to somebody, oh, someone's driving me up the wall, I need to get rid of them, it's too late. One, you've lost the employee, you potentially lost the respect of other employees as well. So have that support up front, and anything that doesn't feel right, then you can have a chat about and make sure that you do the right thing at that point.
Absolutely. And I think if we think about it in terms of cost, the cost of engaging an HR consultant or a professional HR consultant versus the cost of not having anything and just downloading a template or GPT in it, like using AI tools or something just to get people on board. And then when unfortunately it goes wrong, and it does go wrong, that cost is huge compared to if you were to engage somebody from the very onset of that employee journey into your business and throughout your business. And I think that is typically underestimated, isn't it? Because by the time things go wrong and we come in, like you just said, it's too late and it's very costly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the time, the majority of the time I'll go into a business and they'll say, oh, I've got this contract from the internet, or I had it 5 years ago in a business that I was, things have changed. And as you say, it's not protecting them and it's not really building confidence, I would say, within the business. But as you say, absolutely, the costs, if you get it wrong, are huge. But for me, I think a lot of businesses don't even, obviously the money is a huge part of it, but for me, the other element is that reputation, and the reputation in the local community, with your customers, with your clients, with your current staff. If you get something wrong, for example, and then you just get rid of somebody without any process or justification, reasoning, it's not going to build the confidence with your current team. So they're potentially going to start whispering within the workplace. Then they're going to speak to their friends, and then clients and customers are going to hear. So the reputation piece, as well as the monetary value, is can be really big if you get it wrong. So again, as you say, to kind of have an hour or two of advice at the beginning before you make any drastic decisions can really help your business in many ways.
Absolutely. And the costs, as you just highlighted, includes monetary, reputational, with both all your stakeholders, internal and external clients, employees, etc. but there's also management time and the stress that people sort of go through when they're dealing with relationship breakdown in the workplace and complex issues that needs unpacking as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we've all been in situations where we think, oh yeah, I can sort this one out myself. And you spend hours Googling, or you look it up in a book, or you think, oh, what did I do before? Actually, a 5-minute phone call to somebody that deals with it day in, day out takes away the stress, means that you can get back to doing what you want to do, what you love doing, rather than dealing with people issues a lot of the time. And then everyone's kind of resolved and can move on, rather than it hanging over. So many business owners come to me after a few weeks and say, I've had sleepless nights. And you just think, why don't you just ring? It's a simple phone call, because, that's what I'm there for. You only pay when you need me. Don't worry about it. I'm going to give you the advice. You can deal with it and move on, or I can deal with it and then we can both move on. So, yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of time wasted. And because I suppose, if you think of a good HR director working within a business, it can be up £90,000, on a full-time basis. So thinking about that, it's the wrong impression. I think a lot of business owners do think, I just can't afford that advice. But as we've just said, maybe you can't afford to just get that advice in the first place anyway. So
Yeah, and also the beauty of working with someone like yourself and others within the HR independence community is that we have a community of very well experienced, vetted, and accredited professionals that through the help desk as well that we work with our legal partners free. If you need a second opinion, you can get that sounding board, one from other experienced HR consultants, but two from a legally qualified, very experienced team as well, supporting the help desk. So your clients, it's not just getting you or your experience, it's a whole host of years of experience, expertise, etc., coming to help them when they engage with you.
yeah, absolutely. And I often say to them, that, you get the question, oh, do we need to speak to a solicitor? It's like, well, somebody. So yeah, I can support and discuss with my team. And as you say, the help desk is there. So I contact them if there's, anything that I'm not 100% sure of. And then that goes back to the client. So again, as you say, they're reassured. It's not just my opinion, it's that whole community and network of individuals, consultants, professionals that we've got within the HR independence community that we rely on and use on a basis. And I think that's, I can't remember if I said at the beginning, but that's again why, you might be hiring myself, but actually you're getting up to 10, 20 different people that could actually support you with any issue that's going on at any one time. So, and that's definitely a lot cheaper than hiring 10 people.
That is, I think that's a very important point to highlight, and one that a lot of businesses don't realize when they engage with consultants, that you're not just getting the consultancy or their lead consultant, you're potentially getting a whole host of expertise and experience that support them in delivering their service to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've all worked in HR for a long time and have lots of different experiences. So, although I'd like to think there's probably not many situations that I haven't come across, there's always going to be something that I'm, maybe not 100% sure of, or I haven't dealt with. So, but, every time I come across that, I know that there will be someone somewhere within the community that has dealt with that. So having that support for my clients has been invaluable over the period to support them and make sure that we make the right decisions at the right time.
It's 100%. You always think, yeah, I've seen it all. You can't possibly surprise me. Then you go, wow. It's,
Definitely.
that's always the case. And you talked about working with varied clients. So if you talk about it, and I will compare it to when we recruiting for an in-house person, typically people go, oh, what's your background? What's your experience? Which industry have you worked in, etc. And that is almost at a considered or deemed as a negative Whilst when you're a consultant, actually, it's a massive, massive advantage to have the benefits of working with different clients, whether it's the size of the clients, the industry, different industry sectors, etc., because it brings a whole wealth of experience and it gives you different outlook to different things when you come across it with different clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll still have some of the clients that will say, "Oh, have you worked in this industry before?" And I'll say, "No, if I haven't, I'll be honest." But then, and I'll say, and they go, "Well, you're not going to achieve or succeed in this one." I was like, "What? How do you know? If you've always done the same, it's that whole thing, isn't it? If you've always done it that way, how do you know there's a different way that isn't better?" And so I don't have that as a what's it, I've forgotten the word.
A barrier.
A barrier, yeah, that's it. So my clients, I don't have that as a barrier. Ultimately I say, well, it's great having a different perspective. As I say, let's learn from other experiences. You might not have thought to use that in the business, but actually in this one, in that situation, I've done A, B, and C. Would any of those things work in this business? And so, as you say, having that wide knowledge and experience across a number of different industries, some as we know work in very strange and weird and wonderful ways that works for them, and actually definitely wouldn't work for some clients, but others could actually be a way to improve things, change things, or help to grow businesses. So definitely, I think as a consultant, having that variety across, from hospitality to construction to IT, it just gives you a wide visibility of so many different things that you can look and support and introduce in so many different ways in different businesses.
So when you go into a business, let's say you have a new or potential client that you engage in a conversation with, how do you go about establishing that relationship with the client and ensuring that you understand their business, their needs to be able to tailor your service to what they actually need? Because let's face it, a lot of the time, when someone first approaches you, what they think they need mostly ends up being very different to what they actually need once you've engaged with them.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as you say, for businesses that are hiring or contracting an HR consultant to start with, they have generally, as a lot of people don't really know what we do and what we can do. So in terms of establishing that relationship, I try to build their confidence. I listen to what they're saying, but I also hear what they're not saying. So I'll dig deep, ask some of the difficult questions. I'll try and encourage them to let me speak to some of their teams, because it's that whole thing, what are the team doing when you're not here, or what do you not know about? So I try to get on board with those people as well, find out what they think the issues are from the bottom up, and then also obviously from the top, from the management point of view. It's tricky sometimes when the issue comes back to, well, the MD's the problem, but you then work with them and find a way to support that. And a lot of that is to do with things that aren't transparent or aren't clear. There's no consistency. It comes back to some of the policies and processes, and again, just ensuring everyone is treated fairly. So for me, it's really important. I've got really good relationships with the majority of my clients. They know at any time of the day they can ring me and I'll get back to them. If I can't answer there and then, I'll tell them the truth if I think they're being silly. I've built that relationship so that they know that no question is too silly, but I'll also tell them if I think that they're being out of order, or that's the wrong route to take. So I think it's just somebody that they trust. They trust me. They know that they'll have a resolution. It might not always be the one that they want, but they'll have options to deal with things. So yeah.
And yes, again, very important, because your role as a consultant and the value that you add to your clients is being very, very honest, transparent, etc. with them, highlighting the pros and cons, the risk, etc., associated with any decision making, the benefits and whatnot, so that they can really make a considered and an informed decision. Because, like you said, they may sometimes get the answer they are looking for or the resolution they are looking for, but other times they may get very different resolution to what they think they are looking for. And you, as the consultant, when you go in as well, part of the value you add is listening, not just to the leaders or to the managers, but to employees as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, for me, although I work very closely with the majority of the business owners, it's about building up that relationship across, the whole business so that I can really understand maybe what is missing, what is needed, how we need to improve things. But ultimately, I think with the business owners, as you say, they could come to me and they could get this advice or that. But ultimately, I've always said to managers, you can do what you want, but my role is to say, if you do it this way, it's going to be, it might take a bit of time. If you do it this way, it's going to cost you money. If you do it that way, you're going to be in a tribunal. They're your options. But I don't ever try and say no. As I say, it's about, you can do that, but this is the risk, this is the cost, and this is what's going to happen, as a result of that. So, it's just making them understand that, I'm there to support them and I'm working with them. Yes, as I say, I try not to ever say, no, you can't do that. But if you do that, they know what the outcome is. And as you say, it's their business decision at the end of the day.
Absolutely. In business, you can do almost everything you want, depending on how deep your pocket is. Yeah, isn't it? Your risk appetite.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that. But jokes aside, even if you have the deepest pocket and you're prepared to part with the highest potential cost the tribunal may award, the one that you may not be ready for and that can cost you the long-term damage might be that reputational risk or reputational damage that it costs. So managing that and putting things in perspective is very important. And I think our role as HR people, the H is very important. The humans, how organizations treat humans, how we support organizations to treat humans, etc., is very, very important, because just because you can pay someone off doesn't mean you should, or doesn't mean that should always be your only option, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, it's not the route that I would generally encourage or ask any of my clients to go down. I think, as I said at the beginning, just trying to work it out on my fingers. 29 odd years ago, I was, I had a couple of situations where I was made redundant and dismissed from a company, and, I wasn't treated fairly. And actually, that still impacts me today sometimes. So, for me, as you say, it is about understanding these are people, and they have lives, they have families, they have feelings. Even if we have to make a difficult decision, we can follow a process and explain and make sure that they know why and what's happening. Definitely, for me, it's not about paying off. That's always my last resort. But what I'm saying is, though, ultimately, as we've said before, business owners can do what they want, but they have to acknowledge that whatever decision they make will potentially have an impact, as you say, on their pockets, but also their reputation. So, my aim with all of my clients is to make sure they don't get to that point, is to make the decisions before we're at that final, oh dear, what now, what do we do? So, keep them out of tribunals, as every consultant is trying to do, and make sure that they keep their reputation intact, they keep their current employees happy, their understanding of why we've made certain decisions, and everyone can move on positively.
Absolutely. And if it does go wrong, your support would mean that it doesn't become so disastrous, but that is even handled well and within reason as well.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we have to make it clear that even if we followed everything 100 percent to the letter of the law, it doesn't mean that somebody isn't going to try and put in a claim. But again, we have to make sure that we've crossed the T's, dotted the I's before that point, and can show that actually we've been reasonable, we've been fair, etc. So all through the process, as you say, it's making sure that you are doing the right thing and you have everything there. But ultimately, yeah, unfortunately, some people will always try it on. And again, as consultants, we're there to help them unravel that, make sure that they have done everything. If they haven't, we rectify that at the time before hopefully it gets too far.
Excellent. And the other thing is, even as a consultant, you realize that it's not always smooth sailing, isn't it? Because the bottom line is not every client will adhere to advice or guidance that you give them.
No, definitely not. I think I think part of my reason for going into consultancy as well was because sort of previously I'd worked in a couple of companies that had HR, so I was in that HR team, and actually it was a tick box exercise, and I think there was kind of, you're just here, so I'm going to give you advice, but and I'm going to listen to it, but I'm not actually going to take it on board and do anything with it. So working as a consultant, my aim's always been to work with businesses that value HR and actually want that advice. But again, as you say, you still get some clients that say, nah, actually, I don't need to do that, I don't want to do that, and you have to make a decision. Then again, you can only do so much. You're there as a support role, you're there as an advisor. If they choose not to take that, then there's not a huge amount I can do kind of moving forward. But it's definitely, sometimes not a smooth ride. They will try every trick in the book sometimes to ask you to change your mind, or are you sure, and question everything. But be confident, stand your ground, and over time they will then, well, you'll have two routes. They'll either respect you and actually then start taking your advice on board and following things correctly, or you part ways.
How have you found the role that AI, such as ChatGPT, be more accessible to people? How have you found that the role is played in the interactions you have with clients, the employees, etc., as an HR consultant?
I have to say, I haven't actually come across a huge amount. I think at the minute, luckily my clients still ring me rather than chat GPTing it. But yeah, so for me, it's not been a huge thing. I've heard obviously stories where grievances and things like that are all being written by AI. But me personally, my clients and even sort of my managers and things, I think I've kind of, I suppose, drilled it into them. It's still a lot quicker to ring me and get a proper advice rather than try and find it out for yourself. So for me at the minute, touch wood, that carries on. It hasn't been a huge issue.
Yeah, and I think where the issues come in is potentially people going online or going into an app or something and then just going, actually, my manager was awful to me today. Do I have an issue or a case for grievance? And then I go, oh yeah, this is a side they do. And sometimes it takes away the human interactions within the workplace, isn't it? Where the employee might go to their manager, their team lead, etc., to say, hey, wasn't quite happy with the way things turned out today, or can we have a chat about this, and vice versa, where a manager might go to their employees to say, actually, that was out of line today. Can we have a conversation to ensure that it doesn't happen again? Because sometimes it's easier to write things than to talk to people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some people, yeah, can't communicate well face to face, as you say, and they find it easier. But I think over the years, even just with Google and the internet and things, it has been a lot easier for employees to maybe look at different routes rather than having that conversation with their manager face to face. But again, for me and with my clients, it's about ensuring that the workplaces are places that people want to work, they feel safe, they feel that they can raise issues. We have tools, whether that's a feedback or the appraisals, the reviews, to have those conversations regularly, check-ins. So I think, yeah, it's going to change, and people are going to use them more, and already are, as you say. But from my point of view and the managers I deal with in the businesses, it's about just trying to ensure that we have everything in place to make sure that that isn't the only option that the employees feel that they can go down. And if we have a situation where one does come up, then we explain the process, we are, and have those conversations and try and make sure that that doesn't then become the norm. That is just a one-off.
Excellent. And I think what you're saying is that the key to all this, the good workplace relationship, is creating a working environment that people feel safe and able to talk, to engage, to contribute, etc., as well as raise issues when they think things aren't going well, rather than have an environment where people don't feel able to, hence they resort to the last or worst case scenario rather than actually going through a formal process as the last resort. It becomes the first place to start because they don't think they'll be listened to.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, it's about training managers and putting everything in place so that people do feel valued. I think, if you do have a situation that comes up, you deal with it fairly, you deal with it promptly, confidentially, all of those things to make the employees feel valued. I think it's understanding your workplace, and if you've got lots of people leaving, something's not right. That it might be that actually we see the final straw as a grievance, but actually is it that we've had 10 people leave in the last 6 weeks, or so it's understanding your workplace, understanding your managers, understanding the issues that are coming up, and as you say, by having the processes, the tools, the options in place, the open door policies, availability, making employees feel valued, hopefully it doesn't come to that, and it's about ensuring that you have all those in place from day one with your 1 employee up to your 100 employees.
Yeah. People do leave, but if you have 10 people leaving in 6 weeks, then you absolutely have real issues that
Exactly.
and then to find as well. So thank you very much, Theresa, for your honest discussion around the services you provide with clients and how you work with clients, etc. And I think if we touch on lessons learned, so one of the reasons that you said you started your consultancy was to be able to impact on a number of businesses and to work with different clients and to make a real difference to them. So, what are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way?
I think for me, some of the lessons that, as a consultant, you're never going to get on with everybody. So I think for me, definitely having the confidence to say we're not the right fit and part ways is one of the lessons that I've learned. Definitely, a key one, because as I said before, you work in an environment that you want to feel happy yourself and that you are valued. So if you're giving advice and they're not following that, then that isn't right for me. So a lesson that it's okay to either say no to work that you don't want to do, or that isn't in your preferred area, I suppose, but also to say no to clients that really don't meet your values and your purpose as well.
Great, excellent. And that's a great tip, I think, for a lot of consultants or for all consultants out there, making sure that you're aligned to the clients that you're working with, because you would enjoy your work more and you would serve your clients better if you're more closely aligned than if you are not. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other things that I learned very early on in the consultancy was, I suppose, because I was new to it and I was contracting out and I was that person on the outside, I quite often used to say, well, when you do this, when this happened in your business, but actually very quickly I realized actually it is a we, and that really grew the value and the confidence in the clients, because they knew that I was with them. So for any new consultants that are looking, sort of the language that you use and things like that are really important to build up that confidence and trust as well.
Yeah, and again, another important point, because your client would like for you to be part of their team, for you to understand them as a business, what their pain points are, what their challenges are, and what they are trying to achieve, their vision, etc. So adapting your language and demonstrating that you understand them as a business is truly important.
Yeah, definitely, because that's the whole point. You might not be full time and and on site every single day, but you are a key part of that team to help them grow, develop, make sure there's no issues moving forward. So showing that you are part of them as that one unity is really important to grow that relationship.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Theresa. And I would like to end with top tips. So your top 3 tips for anyone listening who is thinking about, I must engage with an HR consultant with Theresa, or I best start thinking about how I look after my people better. What will your top 3 tips be?
I think that they need to be aware and understand that HR consultants are more than just policies and templates. We can be hands-on for real situations. So yeah, we can draft documents and guide tricky conversations, but we can actually be on site, hand holding, etc., for those situations. And basically business owners and managers can be confident that they're not on their own during those situations. I think HR consultants provide peace of mind, and as we've said a couple of times, the cost savings, not only in terms, of not recruiting a full-time HR professional within the business, but having the reduced risk of being taken to a tribunal or the reputational costs, etc. And I think the third thing for me in terms of an HR consultant, which I know a lot of my clients value, is that trusted partner, whether that is a sounding board or, for issues with the management team, or it's just somebody with a different perspective. Because, as a consultant, I'm not involved in the day-to-day issues and I suppose some of the office conversations that you might have and or what do we say, the water cooler conversations where you're stood there. Then I think I can be really trusted by that manager. And as I say, that can be either for difficult conversations or to supporting them with that growth with no independent agenda. I'm there just for them and their business at that time. So I think, for people considering an HR consultant, they're the key things to think about for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Theresa, for joining us, and thank you for being so honest about your consultancy, how you work with your clients and how you support them. And thank you once again for tuning in and for listening to us. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please do share with your network and get in touch with us with any questions that you may have. And if you have a particular topics that you'd like us to talk about on the podcast, please do get in touch and let us know. It's hrvoices@hrindependence.co.uk. Thank you. See you again soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Mary.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of HR Voices. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover or would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at hrvoices@hrindependence.co.uk. Tune in next time.